What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the CBS Sports channel. I'm Matt, and you're watching episode 5 of Fixing the Franchise. This episode's all about fixing the Tennessee Titans. As always, I will give the rundown on how this works for any of you first-time viewers. I'm going to be taking a team that either underachieved last season or was just flat out bad. In today's case, it's the Tennessee Titans. From here, I put myself in the shoes of the general manager and fix the franchise. The catch is that I only have 5 moves that I can make, and I would like to emphasize that so it really hits home. I only have 5 moves! I won't be able to address every single little need of this team, but I'm going to try my best to put them in a place to succeed going into next season. With that out of the way, let's move on to the general overview of the Tennessee Titans. The Titans finished the 2023 season with a 6-11 record, which will yield them a top 10 pick in this year's draft. The Titans were last in the AFC South, which ended up being a lot more of a competitive division than most fans had initially predicted. As we all know, C.J. Stroud led the Houston Texans from worst to first as they ultimately won the division with a 10-7 record. Stroud looked like the real deal in his rookie season, and with a young nucleus, this Texans team will look to build off an impressive season. The Jacksonville Jaguars and the Indianapolis Colts finished 2nd and 3rd in the division, both with decent 9-8 records. Now, 9-8 wasn't enough to earn either team a playoff spot in what was a very tough AFC South. The Colts looked promising under rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson, but his season was cut short due to an injury. The Colts still remain competitive and with a great head coach have a lot to look forward to. On the other hand, the Jaguars were supposed to win the division with ease, yet underperformed in many aspects this season. The Jags have faced several growing pains, especially under quarterback Trevor Lawrence, but this team also shows some promise as well. The AFC South landscape shows that most of these teams played above their expectations in 2023, but as of right now, it looks like they all have found their franchise quarterbacks and should be very competitive for years to come. The Titans will have their work cut out for them, but this high level of competition should help improve this team. Now, let's do a bit deeper of a dive into the Titans, starting on the offensive side of the ball. The Tennessee Titans struggled on offense in 2023, having ranked 28th overall on a per-yard basis. It is worth noting that the Titans had a very strange 2023 season, and their management surprised everybody when they capped it off by firing head coach Mike Vrabel. Vrabel was a couple years removed from winning Coach of the Year, which is why a lot of fans were left confused by this move. The Titans have brought in Cincinnati Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan to take over for this team. Mike Vrabel was a defensive-minded guy, so the Titans clearly wanted to go in a different direction, hiring an offensive-minded Callahan. This should hopefully lead to offensive improvements. Speaking of which, let's refocus back on the offense. This Titans offensive ranking isn't as horrible as it looks. Tennessee had to make a quarterback change roughly halfway through the season when starting quarterback Ryan Tannehill hurt his ankle. Rookie quarterback Will Levis stepped up and took over for almost all of the remainder of the season. Levis was a projected first-round pick that fell to the second round, where Tennessee traded up to select him. Will Levis had a spectacular debut where he threw for 238 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions in a victory over the Atlanta Falcons. This was one of the brightest flashes from the young quarterback's rookie season. Now, I'm sure you're probably wondering, if Levis looked so good, then why was the offense so bad? The answer to that is the horrible offensive line play. Levis was sacked 28 times in the 9 games he played, and that doesn't take into account the pressure he constantly felt in the pocket. Altogether, the Titans' offensive line gave up 64 sacks all season, which is horrendous. The interior of this team's offensive line wasn't the problem, it was the tackles. This is something that needs to be worked on this offseason. With that mouthful out of the way, let's switch to the defense now. The Titans didn't have the worst defense as it ranked 18th in the league. Ideally, you want to be in the top half of the league, but this could be worse. However, Mike Vrabel was a big part of this defensive play calling, so losing him could have a negative impact. The new Titans defensive coordinator has some pretty big shoes to fill. This defense's biggest weakness last season was probably their secondary. It didn't help that they traded star safety Kevin Byard to Philadelphia at the trade deadline. We will look to improve on the secondary this offseason. Also, a lot of defensive starters from last year's team are set to hit free agency, so we're going to have to wheel and deal. Let's jump into some foundational pieces of this team that I think are worth highlighting. Starting with the guy I've already mentioned, and that's quarterback Will Levis. Now, I want to preface this by admitting that I was a huge Levis fan coming into the draft, and that has not changed. Levis didn't have any horrible stats his rookie year. He had several flashes and really only played half the season. I truly believe that Will Levis is this team's franchise quarterback, and we need to put a team around him. This next guy is one of the league's best veteran wide receivers, and that's DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins was this team's leading receiver and looked to have a great connection with Levis. Hopkins is no spring chicken at 31, but he can still serve as the wide receiver 1 for the next couple of years. Hopkins currently sits at 12,355 receiving yards with 78 receiving touchdowns in his NFL career. He is easily going to be in the Hall of Fame and will provide great guidance for Levis and the team's wide receiver room. Going into the trenches now, we have the Titans' 2023 first-round pick, offensive lineman Peter Skoronski. Now, Skoronski can really play anywhere on the offensive line, but is best fit as an offensive guard. What sticks out to me is that Skoronski only had 1 penalty his entire rookie season, which is very impressive. He has all the intangibles to be a great lineman. He just needs time, like most players at his position. He should be a key piece to protecting Levis. Onto the defensive side of the ball, we have defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons. Jeff Simmons didn't have his best year this past season, but he did miss some time. Simmons has proven that he's a top-tier defensive lineman in this league and will be a cornerstone of this defense. The next player I'm highlighting is edge rusher Harold Landry III. Landry III has had a lot of ups and downs in his career, but when he's on his game, he is a dynamic pass rusher. He bounced back from missing 2022 by finishing second on this team in sacks last season. Landry is only 27 and should continue to improve on his game. The next player is linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair. Al-Shaair came over from the 49ers in free agency last offseason and is set to be a free agent once again. Al-Shaair led this team in tackles and played a big role for this defense. I'm going to make a priority to bring him back and lock him up as a long-term piece of this D. The last guy that I'm going to be highlighting is safety Amani Hooker. Amani Hooker had a solid season and was one of the only bright spots of the secondary. He's a young up-and-coming star, and getting him some help on the back end of this defense is a top priority. Those are the key foundational players that we'll be building around. Now, let me quickly discuss the Titans' cap situation before I dive into my 5 offseason moves. To be fair, there isn't a lot to talk about when it comes to this Titans cap situation. At the time I'm making this video, the Titans have the 3rd most cap in the league at around $80 million. Having a quarterback draft in the 2nd round and still on his rookie deal definitely helps. Now, what you've all been waiting for, time for the moves that I would make to fix this franchise. Unlike the past couple episodes of Fixing the Franchise, I will not be making roster cuts as there are not any contracts worth cutting and this team is top 3 in cap space. The first move I would make is to re-sign 5 free agent starters from 2023. The players I will be re-signing include offensive tackle Chris Hubbard, center Aaron Brewer, linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair, linebacker Jack Gibbons, and cornerback Sean Murphy-Bunting. Chris Hubbard wasn't the greatest offensive tackle in the league by any means, and being on a bad offensive line hurt his value, but he only gave up 4 sacks and graded out as a 69, nice, with PFF. The veteran offensive tackle will be getting a 1-year, $4 million deal. Aaron Brewer was a more than serviceable center for this team in 2023, despite the O-line's poor performance overall. Brewer had a PFF grade of 71.6, and we'll be giving him a 3-year deal worth $16 million. We already highlighted Azeez Al-Shaair, so I don't need to beat a dead horse here. We will be giving the linebacker a 4-year, $40 million deal. A lot of dough. Jack Gibbons was the linebacker that played next to Al-Shaair last year, and he played very well, grading out at a 71.2 with PFF. He's a true lunch pail guy, and we will be bringing him back on a 3-year, $12 million deal. Sean Murphy-Bunting didn't grade out the best in 2023 as he had a PFF grade of 57.6, but this was roughly 20 points lower than his 2022 grade. I think Sean Murphy-Bunting is able to bounce back in 2024 and is better than a lot of the corners in free agency. We're giving him a low-risk, 2-year, $13 million deal to stay. The 2023 starters that we are letting hit free agency are running back Derrick Henry, wide receiver Nick Westbrook-Ikine, defensive end Denico Autry, defensive tackle Kyle Pecco, cornerback Christian Fulton, and safety Kevon Wallace. I think most of these are self-explanatory, except for maybe 2. Obviously, the elephant in the room is Derrick Henry. I'm 99.9999% sure that Henry will not be a Titan for the 2024 season, and for the sake of keeping these videos as realistic as I can, we will be moving forward without him. The other guy I feel needs explaining is Denico Autry. Autry led the Titans in sacks in 2023 with 11.5, but he'll be 34 by the time the season starts. I want to get younger on this team. Also, I'm sure he would rather go play for a contender with a chance to win a ring before he retires. Let's move on to the second move that I would make. Getting our feet wet in free agency, my second move is to sign free agent cornerback Steven Nelson from the Texans. The reason for this move is because the Titans clearly need secondary help and have a fairly young secondary. Steven Nelson is a very good veteran cornerback too, who can immediately step in and start while also providing value by coaching up the young guys. Nelson also played for the Eagles in 2021 when Titans' new defensive coordinator, Denard Wilson, was the secondary coach there. This familiarity just makes too much sense. I also considered Ronald Darby, but Nelson's the better player. Nelson graded out with a 71.9 PFF grade and had 4 interceptions and 12 pass deflections last season. We'll be giving the 31-year-old veteran cornerback a 2-year, $20.4 million deal. I told you I was going to address the secondary. Actually, we're not finished addressing the secondary. The third move that I would make is to sign free agent safety Geno Stone from the Baltimore Ravens. Geno Stone is another Denard Wilson guy. Titans' new defensive coordinator Wilson was the secondary coach for Baltimore last season, where Stone finished second in the league for interceptions with 7. Stone follows Denard Wilson to Tennessee and provides an immediate upgrade in the secondary. Similar to Steven Nelson, Geno Stone also had a PFF grade of 71.9 last season, where he had 9 pass deflections on top of his 7 interceptions. We also considered signing Antoine Winfield Jr. from Tampa Bay instead, but Stone made more sense. We are staying on the defensive side of the ball with this fourth move, as I would sign free agent defensive lineman Leonard Williams from the Seahawks. The Seahawks traded for Williams from the Giants at the trade deadline, but I think Williams tests out free agency. Leonard Williams is a very consistent above-average defensive lineman that'll play a 3-tech for this Titans defense. Williams will be 30 by the start of the season, which is in fact younger than Autry. Williams will be able to play on the other side of Jeffrey Simmons for what should be a 3-4 defense. I considered AJ Epineza, but Williams was a better scheme fit. Leonard Williams graded out with a 76.2 PFF grade last season and had 5.5 sacks and 10 TFLs. He can defend the run and rush the passer. We are giving him a 3-year, $50 million deal, which is around his market value. Now for the final move that I'd make to fix the franchise, I would draft offensive tackle Olu Fashanu and others in the 2024 NFL Draft. There have been a few team needs that I haven't addressed yet, especially on the offensive side of the ball. That's because they're most likely being addressed in the 2024 NFL Draft. I completed a full 7-round draft on a mock draft simulator to simulate who I would draft for the Titans and where. Typically, I don't do draft trades in the series, but I was offered several throughout the draft simulator and decided to take 2 somewhat realistic ones. In the first round of the draft, the Tennessee Titans hold the 7th overall pick. I keep flipping back and forth on this selection. Originally, I wanted Joe Alt going into the draft simulator, but he wasn't falling to 7, so I ultimately went with Olu Fashanu instead, which I'm still a pretty big fan of. Drafting Fashanu provides the Titans with their franchise left tackle of the future and will add immediate protection for Will Levis. Adding Fashanu will immediately improve the offensive line overall. Now I'd like to go over the rest of the selections I made in the 7th round Titans mock draft. The Titans' 2nd round pick is number 38, but I opted to accept an offer and trade down. I traded pick 38 to the Green Bay Packers for picks 41 and 91. Here I only moved down 3 spots and picked up a late 3rd round pick, which the Titans didn't have any 3rd round picks prior. This brings us to pick 41 in the 2nd round, where I wasn't a huge fan of how the board fell, so I accepted another trade offer to trade down once again. I traded pick 41 to the Philadelphia Eagles for picks 50 and 97. So we moved down 9 more spots and pick up another 3rd round pick. So after moving down 12 spots in the 2nd round and picking up 2 3rd round picks, I can make a selection. I took tight end Jatavion Sanders, who I actually debated taking at pick 41. Sanders is the 2nd best tight end in this draft and gives quarterback Will Levis a dynamic playmaker. Any wide receiver available at this point was a reach, and I think Sanders could battle it out day 1 with Chigoziem Okonkwo for the starting tight end spot. Our next pick was the first 3rd round pick we acquired for moving down in the 2nd. At pick 91, I took defensive tackle Braden Fisk. We replaced Danico Autry on the defensive line, but we still needed a starting nose tackle, and Fisk can compete for that spot. Fisk is an absolute athlete, and he showed out at the Combine, having the best 40-yard dash time, vertical jump, broad jump, and 20-yard shuttle of all defensive tackles. He can play any tech on the D-line and has sky-high potential. At the other pick we acquired by trading down, I selected cornerback Kyrie Jackson at pick 97. Jackson profiles an outside corner with tremendous size at 6'4". He didn't run an awful 40, having ran a 4.5, and I'm planning on him developing into Steven Nelson's successor. Moving on to pick 107 in the 4th round, I selected wide receiver Brendan Rice. I'm a huge fan of Brendan, and that isn't because his father is Jerry Rice. I like Brendan Rice because he has great hands and can create separation on the outside. He didn't have a flashy combine, but Rice's film speaks for itself. I think Rice could start day 1 for the Titans team. In the 5th round at pick 145, I took offensive tackle Matt Goncalves. Matt Goncalves is one of my favorite sleepers in this draft. He has all the intangibles to be a quality starter in this league. He can battle with Chris Hubbard for the starting right tackle spot day one, and at the very least could be an above-average swing tackle his rookie year. At pick 184 in the 6th round, I'd select running back Isaiah Davis. Davis is another guy that didn't have a flashy combine performance, but his film speaks for itself. Davis is a productive runner and could eventually carve himself out a role in a committee with Tyjae Spears. Moving on to the first of 3 7th-round picks, I'd select safety Jalen Simpson at pick 219. Simpson could provide versatility and depth to the Titans secondary. If he doesn't work out, it was only a 7th-round pick that we used on him. With the next 7th-round pick, I'd take edge Eric Watts at 225. Watts is the ideal size of an NFL edge rusher at 6'6", 274 pounds, and every bit of an athlete. Watts ran a 4.67 40 time and put 21 reps on the bench. This is a low-risk, high-reward player that could develop into a nice rotational edge. With the Titans' last pick of the draft, I selected center/offensive guard Dylan McMahon at pick 240. McMahon is a versatile interior offensive lineman that could hopefully provide some depth to this offensive line. I think this would be a killer draft for the Titans, but I may be a bit biased. I took a lot of players that I think are sleepers like Matt Goncalves, Brendan Rice, and Isaiah Davis. I also took some straight-up athletes like Braden Fisk and Eric Watts. It'll be interesting to see where those guys end up come April. Now that I've discussed the moves that I would make, let's take a look at what this team could potentially look like next season. Starting on offense, at quarterback will be Will Levis, who should take that next step going into his second season. With his athleticism and cannon of an arm, he has all the potential in the world. Running back Tyjae Spears has huge shoes to fill in the backfield, taking over for Derrick Henry. Spears showed a lot of great flashes last season, but Brian Callahan's offense should be a friendlier fit for him. I think he will thrive in a Joe Mixon type of role. As far as Levis's weapons go, he will have DeAndre Hopkins as his number 1 receiver, Brendan Rice on the other side of the field at the 2, and we will have Treylon Burks in the slot. I think Burks has a breakout year in Callahan's offense. We also have rookie Jatavian Sanders starting at tight end. Hopefully he has a big impact, similar to how Sam Laporta did for Detroit last season. Our offensive line looks similar to last year, but with the addition of Olu Fashanu at left tackle, having a left tackle can completely transform an entire offensive line. Peter Skoronski will remain at left guard, where hopefully he takes the next big leap. Aaron Brewer should be a solid center once again, and Daniel Brunskill will play at right guard, and Chris Hubbard will be at right tackle. Matt Goncalves will compete for right tackle. Dylan Redunz and Andre Dillard are added depth that could both fill in at guard or tackle as needed. I think this is a young and promising offense. Things probably won't click right away, but under new head coach Brian Callahan, I could see this offense running like a well-oiled machine halfway through the season. Now on to the defense. The defensive line gets a bit revamped. Jeffrey Simmons stays at defensive tackle, Leonard Williams fills in on the other side, and rookie Braden Fisk will probably line up in between. With that said, this will probably be a 3-4 defense, so I can see any combination of these 3 guys along that defensive line. The starting linebackers are going to remain the same as last season. Harold Landry and Arden Key are your outside linebackers, and Aziz Al-Shair and Jack Gibbons fill in the inside. The secondary gets a bit of a new look. Sean Murphy-Bunting and Amani Hooker reprise their roles at cornerback and safety on one side, while we add Steven Nelson and Geno Stone on the other side. Although this doesn't look like a star-studded defense, I think it's full of efficient players and stars in the making. I believe that this defense has the potential to play itself into the top 10 in the league. This Titans team needs this offseason are very subjective. I did my best to identify what I thought they needed and address them accordingly. I think this team could develop their young players and quickly become a force to reckon with in the AFC South. Now, comment below what you think this team's record could be in 2024. Don't forget to mention what you liked about this team. That's going to be a wrap for episode 5 of Fixing the Franchise. Please make sure to drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and as always, stay cool.